Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD, Get You Done Venture Studios, premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion. Also, Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. Our motto at GSD is that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. Today at GSD, we have over 180 companies representing 73 countries around the world. We're a family office, PR firm, and a software development firm. So with that, I have an incredible guest today. Todd is joining us from Virginia, Todd Feldman, and graduated from my alma mater, Westchester University of Pennsylvania. So I'd like to bring Todd on board to talk about his company and some of the things that he's been doing with Serescent Solutions. Hey, Todd, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing, Gary? It's great to be here. I guess wherever we are in the world, I guess it's a good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So
it's great to see you. So, how did you like Westchester University of Pennsylvania?
It was awesome. I mean, I was I'll be a little self-deprecating. Well, in Westchester I did really actually quite well as I got later in my career there, my time there. But I wasn't the greatest of students in the world, so I think I was just meant to be out in the world doing my thing. So
no, that's great. I loved the place. I was there for a couple of years. My master's degree, I loved it. Yeah. It was kind of like it was a state school, but it had the feeling of being in a private college.
I agree with you. Yeah,
it was
now it's like really flourishing. Yeah,
that's great. So, Todd, your journey spans over 30 years, from digital transformation leadership at places like AOL to pioneering health and tech innovation companies. What's that journey been like for you? How did you move from AOL to mental health and prevention?
Well, yeah, it's definitely not been a linear career. I've got TV, online, marketing, sales, transformation, all these other things in my background. It's just always been, I've always been a person that sort of want to challenge the status quo. I've got myself in trouble at times in my career. But I like to push new boundaries, like to think differently about problems. For me, to get us sort of where we are today and why, sort of gone the traditional route of sales marketing, but always with technology at the core. But I've had my own lived experience with depression. I share this openly with people and tell it all over the place because it's important we actually get this out there. But my second bout of depression was in 2022. And when I got better pretty quickly after I realized what was going on for the second time, I just started to wonder after that, like, well, we have like seismographs for the earth, like rumbles in the earth to read like earthquakes that are coming, early warning systems. Why don't we have that for the brain? And so that's really, I'll pause, but that's really the journey. And so it really was like this, well, now I'm faced with this problem and I don't want anybody to ever feel like I have felt. And what if we could do a better job of actually completely, and this is the novel, mind-blowing idea, and with your master's in psychology, it's probably, there'll be an interesting discussion, is like, how do we not have people get anxious or depressed ever? And it all comes with prevention and really understanding your risk of the problem, and then doing the things like we talk about with heart health, doing the things to keep you from ever getting into that position that I have been.
One of the things that I talked about is it's kind of like having a funnel, right?
Yeah.
And water goes down, but the other thing is if you reinforce those positive experiences coming up. I know whenever I was down, that really helped to go down through it. And I was with a guy named Andrew Straczynski, who's a right-hand man of Rupert Murdoch, and we had dinner with Carl Page, Larry Page's brother, out in Palo Alto. And I was sitting next to him. And I said to him, because entrepreneurs go through this all the time, right? You got the ups and downs and ins and out. Yeah. And I said, he said, I've identified the characteristics of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. I've interviewed 3,000 of them and I've analyzed it. And I said, what's one thing that they all have in common? He said, they never talk about the past. They only use it as a reference point. They only talk about the future. And so they let go. A lot of times people just don't let go, right? They try to anchor themselves in in this quagmire of crap, right? And they don't let it go. And
Right.
if you don't let it go, it's going to stick with you. And sometimes people don't want to let it go, right? Because they feel that they want to be pitied and that kind of thing. And it's not about that. It's about moving forward, not moving backwards.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the thing that's fueling us going forward. I mean, I use it as a launch. I almost think of it as like a sort of a line in the sand or a launch point or whatever you want to call it. And really for me, it's become my calling and our mission is at the company here. So yeah, we typically don't look backward. We look forward, and we're trying to get to a place where we can have conversations about improving, having mental health become a treatment disorder, a prevention disorder, not a treatment disorder, as it is really widely and too well established in the way we do it, the way we care for it. So
BrainDash is described as the first predictive mental health early warning system for schools. In fact, we had another group that was dealing with mental health for schools in my last cohort that we had. Can you break down exactly how the technology works? What are you looking at? What does it do?
So we're looking at, so first of all, we're looking at known modifiable risk factors for affective disorders like anxiety, depression, or behavioral things like, with too much stress comes behavioral issues like alcoholism, addiction. So we're looking at the early.
Most people don't know that, one of the problems with alcoholism, right, is that it's a social stimulant, but it's a depressant.
That's right.
And the more you do it, the worse you're going to be.
That's right. That's right. And it's a slippery slope. We could call it a gateway to other things. So, I feel much better now on alcohol. What else could I do to feel better? And that's just, it just lends us down the slippery slope. No, so we're looking at modifiable risk factors. We look at in the platform. So BrainDash is a prevention platform or a predictive early warning platform. We're starting with schools, but we're seeing it in also opportunities with like self-funded health plans where they're trying to have prevention, value-based care, not fee-for-service in healthcare, value-based care where prevention is important, or even senior living facilities where cognitive decline can lead to like $50,000 in lost revenue per resident. So those known risk factors are things like so we look at a baseline. So in the school setting, we're looking at a baseline once a semester that looks at sleep and nutrition. We do a little bit of like just understanding their if they have some depression. So a PHQ-2, which is, as you know, a common screener for depression, but just two questions around anxiety, satisfaction with life. So one time a semester that, then every biweekly, we're looking at perceived stress and coping and the relationship between the two. And then on a daily basis, we're doing mood checks around things that we call areas of focus. And then we run that all, including the data that lives in the school information system. So we'll integrate with like platforms like Blackbaud, PowerSchool, Veracross, and pull all of this data, like that also includes like grades and attendance, looking at trends in that, and then pull all that together and come up with the early warning dashboard for that counselor that lives or that is charged with managing those students at that school. That's a very, very, very high level of what we look at, but it's a comprehensive inputs around known science around these risk factors, getting out ahead of them and predicting. Really, it's the risk of problem, and then having that counselor, instead of being in reactive mode, which they are today, and it's really a problem because we're seeing 93% of schools are seeing the surge in mental health issues. 95% of parents expect actually that the schools are the place that this gets taken care of, because they only spend 1 hour with their pediatrician, the kids, and 1,000 hours with school. So we're trying to arm the counselor with the insights to intervene before the problem ever becomes a problem.
What specific clinical biomarkers and AI methods are involved, and why are they significant?
Well, I said stress, coping, sleep. We know that obviously if you're having poor sleep, poor nutrition, that affects executive function, that affects then increases in anxiety. We think, so if you think about it, we do this baseline once a semester. Immediately, if you're having trouble with sleep or nutrition, then you're probably at a heightened risk for the other things that come along, like your ability to cope, your ability to deal with your stress or have your perceived stress be where you can handle it. And then, of course, we want to look on a daily basis to see how that student's doing. The important thing is we're looking at multimodal, which is no one data point is really the thing, because we don't want to have a whole lot of false positives. You don't want to. There's some other providers out there that are or some other companies like us that are doing things just on mood checks, but that's not enough, and it's too volatile of a reading. You're not. If a kid has a bad day, if you or I have a bad day, that shouldn't signal the counselor to come visit with me. Like, people can have bad days, and how are you going to cope with that and learn your coping skills? It's really a combination of all of the things, but really what we don't know about people today is what is the risk, their inherent risk of getting, call it, progressing in their disorder, or maybe not ever progressing, because that's what we want to have happen is. So the modifiable risk factors are the things I talked about. They're well cited as things that affect all these other downstream, which is where everyone else is focused, downstream. All these other downstream impacts that occur with that person can be potentially, and we have more to prove, but when we see it in labs and other controlled settings, when you modify or when you deal with those risk factors, you actually help someone build lifelong brain health resilience.
You know, you've emphasized moving mental health care from crisis response to proactive prevention. Why do you think that current reactive model has persisted for so long? Why hasn't somebody come up with something to be able to?
I don't know. And it's not funny. I'm laughing. It's not, because I've been through this, right? I really don't know the question. Maybe it's, and again, it's not really money, because resources aren't really being put, towards mental health as they should be. A lot of people are working on access and care, and they're trying to figure out, well, how do we make access available for people that don't have, like, when the insurance companies aren't really paying for mental health, and it's still a struggle to get coverage. I don't know why. Like, again, when I think, I'm trained in systems thinking. I've been schooled in how to think of a system, and when I think about us just doing the same things over and over and over again, and expecting like we're going to address it with more capacity in the system with clinicians and other people, but we have a shortage of that because we have too much demand. Well, why don't we work on the demand side of it? Why don't we get cases out of the system?
Oh, we have a number of health tech companies. I have one company called Calvary, which made a cancer vaccine, right? And it's prevention and it's a vaccine. And he's a top mRNA researcher, and he can reduce cancer. He's right now 40%. He believes it'll go to 80%, double PhD.
That's awesome.
Entrepreneur. But why? You would think people would go out and embrace it. The guy's a genius. And these kind of things, it's, we have Cerebro, which is our company that looks at helping to make MRIs much more effective, right? By increasing the acuity of those things. So you can look at them and see and catch it before it's a problem. But it's amazing to me that we don't take, I had 100 million stem cells put in my body. I had stage 3 kidney disease. I flew to Thailand, had a top doctor in the world, put mesenchymal stem cells from the umbilical cord twice, actually. And my stage 3 cancer or stage 3 kidney disease went away. And the cancer side, if you have young cells, the chance of getting cancer is a lot less, right? So why wouldn't you go down through and use it to replace these disease cells? There were people there with Alzheimer's. There were people there with dementia. I saw them with supranuclear cerebral palsy. The guy walked. I saw him literally a week later walk. It's crazy. Why don't we have, the problem, I think, Todd, is medical.
For prevention.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Why don't we go down through and do it?
We started our journey, and I thought like, oh, we're going to go to primary care where people are doing, where they're naturally going to get intercepted at their well visit with their doctor, right? And we're going to just like we look at cholesterol screening for heart health, let's do mental health screening, but in a different way, not using the PHQ-9. Again, the problem with the PHQ-9, I'll scream this from the rooftops, and the PHQ-9, the GAD-7, these are, so PHQ is the health questionnaire and the patient health questionnaire around depression, as you may know for your viewers. GAD-7 is general anxiety disorder 7 questions. These are the common screeners, but the problem with that is they're lagging indicators, like not leading indicators. They're not predictors of problem. So you're already, just by using the screening that is for people that have already presented with a problem, you're using that to predict whether they're going to have a problem, which is why they won't, people typically don't answer those questions as we want them to, or as they could. So we believe, so in primary care, we started down the path and we said, well, the economics do not work for a prediction and call it predictive of risk. And we were finding, like, even early days, because we're right now as a startup, we're looking to gain quick traction in revenue and prove out the platform. We couldn't get paid, so we shifted our model, and that's where we kind of went to schools. And we hear a lot, and I'll just kind of pause here, but we hear a lot about like education is going to be a long slog for you, Todd, and Saracen Solutions and BrainDash, and so but we've partnered with the Virginia Association of Independent Schools, so private schools, where the decision maker is that head of school. They're seeing the problem, they know the problem, and they're talking to their counselors every day, and they're like, how do we get on board and help you? And that's where we've been able to secure partnerships right now with that Virginia Association of Independent Schools. We've got 5 schools right now that are advising us on building the product, sort of co-developing the product with us. We're going to be live in 5 to 7 schools here in the fall. So we're really excited about how it's going, and the schools are, have budget to deal, because it becomes, on the business side, a retention opportunity to keep students and that tuition coming back in the school. For public schools, we'll prove ourselves out and be ready for public schools, but it won't be until we get to year 3. And we anticipate that sales cycle to be just a little bit longer, but we think with the right approaches, which we've got in our strategy, we'll be able to get in.
With AI-driven mental health monitoring, privacy is always a concern. How's BrainDash addressing data privacy, security, and ethical use?
We're all of our data is anonymized, and we're leveraging that. The only login really that we'll accept into the platform when we get to the school is the login they use for their school information system. So the users will be known, and it'll be authenticated through that school information system. So we won't have access to that data other than in a totally anonymized way. But so we'll never have where a student name is ever connected to the data or the inputs to the product.
You talked about creating a new standard, for health screening as a routine as blood pressure, checking blood pressure. How do we get society, parents, educators, policymakers to embrace this shift? Because culturally, right, it's not in their DNA. How do we go down through and do that to help them?
I think it's there's opportunity for education, right? So, and that's a long slog, but we do have opportunity. There are associations out there that are charged with raising awareness around mental health, the opportunities around mental health. Again, we're so excited to think about, again, chasing treatment, chasing access. Again, such important work. I don't want to downplay or minimize what other people are doing out there. But what if we could just head off cases? And what if we could have people take better care of themselves? And we know, of course, human behavior, we've got to make it about those people. But, when we we'll talk about kids and what we're doing, right now, compared to 10 years ago, this just came out this week from the Journal of American Medicine, 15 to 20% of kids are more likely to suffer from chronic illness than they did 10 years ago. And it's all, depression, anxiety, behavioral disorders, all the things are the things that are showing up in our kids. And I said, we had 95% of parents, according to the research we've seen, are expecting the schools to be the place where this takes place, where treatment or affecting the change. So let's look to our schools, because they are the front line. of the youth mental health crisis to deal with it. And what if we, Sarasan Solutions, could give them a tool to help create the insight for them to at least start down the path of education, which is what schools are for, and that whole community, as well as heading off those problems with the kids.
So, reflecting on your own entrepreneurial journey, what words of wisdom would you give to aspiring health tech entrepreneurs aiming for societal change?
I mean, you've got to believe what you're doing is right, and you're going to have, and I have had, lots of people tell me I'm crazy, and it's just I guess a bad pun, but I mean, you've got to really believe in what you're doing. I have had plenty of people tell me I'm crazy, or you really don't understand what you're trying to do, and I'm like, well, yes, I've done this in other places. I know what it means to help people create mindset shifts. And that's what we're talking about, like a shift in mindset. I have to prove it. I know that's my job, and our team every day we come to work and we're like, we have to prove this to the world. But you've got to believe, and it's all about studying, doing the research, listening to the people that are the naysayers. I have had plenty of people tell me you should stop what you're doing. I'm like, tell me why you think I should stop what I'm doing. And then they give me the reasons. I'm like, okay, that's really good advice. And really and really one of them was like a person that told me, again, you're never going to get insurance companies to pay for this. All right, well, I have to go through my process to see whether you're right or not, because you're from healthcare. And so what I've also found is, like, when you have too much institutional knowledge, there's too much of that same mindset. I finally, as a business guy and as someone that's come from other industries and looked at things and said, oh, I cannot crack the healthcare code. At least right now, the system is really too broken. So let me go find a place where we can get paid and still do our why, which is, again, I guess the next thing, which is like really be in tune with your why. Why are you doing this? And then where you do it doesn't really matter. It's like the golden circle stuff, right? So know your why, be hell-bent on finding the place where you can actually solve for your why, have the research and data around all of the things to make sure that you are sure about it, and then keep going. And look, at some point, if you can't get traction or you can't get revenue, you either have to find where it's going to be, or if it doesn't exist, then you got to punt. We keep getting pulled down the road. Like I keep saying, like we keep getting new bursts of, or maybe a better analogy is the wind at our back. We have our periods where we think we're going to hit a wall, and then something happens and we break through. And those are just really, and that's what I live for. You have the dips and things like that, but the winds.
Yeah, you go down through your journey. My friend of mine back in the late 90s started a company, and they said he said it's a $30 billion industry is e-commerce at the time, and he wanted to capture it, and people were laughing at him.
Yeah.
And then that company became one of the most valuable companies in the world, and I was right there when he did it. He's a good friend of mine. And then when I started one of the first generative AI companies in 2016, and you can see it in TechCrunch, called Findo, people said this is never going to happen. Pre-transformer models, it's not going to happen for another 25 years. And I remember getting on stage talking about it. I said it's going to happen, and it's now. And if you're not in, and then when I wrote one of the first articles about ChatGPT, right after the December 2019 when they were founded, and I said, this is, again, going to change everything. It's going to, oh, no, it's never going to happen. Well, guess what? It is. Why? Because we have too much infobesity, too much data around us, and we can use these data points to help us make intelligent decisions.
Let's talk about that for just a second. So first of all, I love what you just said, and you're dead on and you're dead right. In 2023, when I came around and said this is a problem, the first thing I started to do is I started to look at, like, I wanted to do my own research. I called it, at the time, because it's seismographs, we called it Project Seismic, right? So I was on the side of my desk. I had a company called Rocket Factory. I was doing business consulting and strategy for mid-market companies. But I started to work on this, and I was putting into Google, right, which feels so old and dated at this point, putting into Google, like, early detection for anxiety and depression. And I was like having to like, then it lists out websites that are doing things in the space. Then I got to click into the website. I got to read pages. And I'm like, well, there's this thing, ChatGPT, which I was just kind of catching on. I'm like, let me go over here to ChatGPT. And I started putting it in. I'm like, immediately it started giving me exactly what I needed to know. I didn't have to go searching the internet. It gave it to me. And then if I wanted to validate what I was seeing, I just went and looked at the research papers. I mean, when I say I did probably 6 months of research in 2 weeks, I'm not kidding. And it's what got us where we are quickly, even though it feels, you look back, it's 3 years, but it's been a huge and valuable tool for us. And obviously it hallucinates, but that's early adopter kind of stuff. We got to, but it's been a huge tool for us. And obviously we're rooting our algorithm and things with using AI and predictive and things like that. We've embraced it obviously for what we're doing. We've got also our chat bot with our kids. Like, so we're interfacing with the kids. We're engaging with the kids, leveraging a data collection model called ecological moment of assessment. So we've got a chat bot. So that is a fancy way of saying collecting data in the environment for which people are engaged, which is for us, the kids in their classroom, on their desk, in their Chromebooks. We have a chat bot that is an agentic chat bot that they can engage with through both getting the screeners, but also getting virtual high fives and other things we'll do to keep them engaged and have fun while we're collecting data to then give and surface with those counselors. So we fully embraced AI. The counselors will have the ability to interrogate the data with AI on the backside, be able to chat with the data that we collect and ask it questions. Anyway, that's
No,
I'm all in with you on AI.
Yeah, this stuff, we're working on multi-agent large language models now. We started doing research 2 years ago where we take a group of them and work as a team where they reduce hallucination, increase speed by up to 1,000 times, right? It's unbelievable. Awesome. And then we've done multimodal large language models. So it's a future. Listen, we're coming up to the top of the show. If you want to hang on for a couple minutes after we're done, we can talk.
Sure.
But closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you, Todd?
Best way to get a hold of me is through our website. You can reach me at Ceresant, CERESANT.com. LinkedIn, look up Todd Feldman. The name is here on the screen. Just really bullish on the future and what's happening and where we're going and our progress that we've made.
Todd, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. And thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. GSD presents Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And we'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Thank you, everyone.